In the heart of Kenya's expansive Kano Plains, where the golden grasslands stretch endlessly toward the shimmering horizon of Lake Victoria, known to the Luo as Namlolwe, a legend was born that still echoes through generations like the distant rumble of thunder. Imagine a warrior so immense he towered like a living mountain among men, his body forged not of flesh but of unyielding stone. Spears hurled with deadly force shattered against his chest like brittle twigs. Arrows rained down only to bounce harmlessly away. Clubs swung by the strongest foes cracked and splintered upon impact. Entire armies of invaders would catch sight of him charging across the battlefield, roaring like a storm, and turn tail in terror before a single blow was landed. This was no invention of modern cinema or comic book fantasy. This was Lwanda Magere, the fierce rock of the Luo people, the unbreakable guardian who stood as the shield of his clan through countless raids and wars. Yet, even the mightiest fortress hides a single crack, and when that secret vulnerability was betrayed by the one closest to him, the legend itself would crack and fall. Today, his story endures not just as ancient folklore, but as a profound tale of strength, trust, betrayal, and the eternal spirit of resilience that defines African heritage.
Long before the borders of modern Kenya were drawn, in the turbulent era of the 1700s and 1800s, the Luo people had settled these fertile lands after their great migration from the lands farther north. They called the vast freshwater sea Namlolwe, its waters teeming with fish and its shores alive with the rhythms of daily life, cattle herding, fishing, farming millet and sorghum under the relentless African sun. The Sido clan, part of the larger Luo community, centered around what is now Kisumu and Muhoroni, lived in the shadow of the Nandi escarpment, where sugar plantations now blanket the earth, but once were open savannas, perfect for grazing and warfare. Constant threats came from their Kalenjin neighbors, particularly the fierce Nandi warriors, who raided for cattle, land, and dominance. These were not mere skirmishes, they were existential struggles for survival, fought with spears, shields, and unyielding courage. In such times of peril, oral traditions like the story of Lwanda Magere became lifelines, passed down through generations around evening fires, accompanied by the beat of drums and the swell of song and dance. These legends preserved history, taught morals, reinforced identity, and reminded the people that even in darkness, heroes could rise. Lwanda embodied the Luo spirit of strength and endurance, a symbol that even today draws pilgrims to a sacred stone formation in the Sido area near Awasi, where warriors once sharpened their blades on his resting place for luck before battle, and where prayers for protection are still offered in quiet reverence.
Lwanda Magere entered the world around 1720 in the Sidho clan, born to a father named Abunyo Ward Omolo and a mother, Nyabera, whose life would be claimed by the very act of bringing him into existence. From the moment of his birth, under a full moon, it was clear he was no ordinary child. His enormous size tore through his mother's strength. Nyabera breathed her last as the giant infant emerged, leaving the village in mourning and wonder. The boy was taken into the loving but stern care of his grandmother, Rapondi, a wise elder who saw in him both tragedy and destiny. She raised him on stories of ancestral bravery, teaching him the ways of the Luo, how to track game across the plains, how to wield a spear with precision, how to respect the spirits of the lake and the ancestors who watched over them. Tragedy struck again when Lwanda was barely a teenager. His father Abunyo fell in one of the endless clashes with Nandi raiders, cut down while defending the clan's heads. This loss ignited a fire in the young giant's heart, a protective rage that would define his life. Even as a child, signs of his unnatural power emerged. he lifted loads that required 3 grown men, his frame stretching rapidly until he stood nearly 9 feet tall, his skin gradually hardening like the volcanic rocks scattered across the Kano plains. What began as toughened hide soon became something more, living stone, impervious to ordinary harm. Rapondi watched with a mix of awe and sorrow, whispering prayers that her grandson's gift would serve his people rather than isolate him.
As Lwanda grew into manhood, he rose swiftly as the invincible protector of the Sitho clan and the broader Luo community. No longer content to tend cattle or fish the lake, he became a warrior whose mere presence shifted the tide of battle. His skin of stone repelled every weapon. Spears glanced off like rain on granite. Arrows splintered mid-flight, and the heaviest clubs rebounded with bone-jarring force back toward their wielders. Enemies whispered his name in fear, Lwanda Magere, the fierce rock that builds and destroys. He would often sit calmly at home, smoking his pipe of tobacco under the shade of an acacia tree, seemingly detached from the chaos of distant skirmishes. But the moment word arrived that Nandi warriors were overwhelming the Luo lines, those night fighting experts who struck under cover of darkness while the Luo preferred the bold light of day, Lwanda would rise, seize his massive shield and spear, and charge into the fray. In one legendary raid, when hundreds of Nandi descended on a Luo village at dawn, Lwanda single-handedly tore through their ranks. His roar echoed across the plains like thunder, scattering dozens with each swing of his spear. Warriors who dared close in found their blades useless. He lifted men bodily and held them into the dust, reclaiming stolen cattle in a single sweeping counterattack. Another time, during a prolonged siege near the escarpment, he stood firm as arrows fell like a monsoon, his stone chest absorbing the onslaught while he advanced alone, turning what seemed a certain defeat into a rout. The Nandi, once bold, began to flee at the mere rumor of his approach, abandoning their spoils and retreating to their highland strongholds. Lwanda's reputation spread like wildfire along the shores of Namlolwe. He protected not just his clan, but entire villages, becoming the living embodiment of Luo resilience. Warriors spoke of sharpening their blades on a certain future stone for luck, and his name inspired songs that celebrated the fierce rock who stood unyielding against the storms of war.
Yet no hero, no matter how mighty, lives without human connections. And it was through marriage that Lwanda's fate would intertwine with betrayal. Exhausted by years of humiliating defeats, and desperate to halt Lwanda's cattle raids that stripped their heads bare, the Nandi elders devised a cunning plan. They offered their most beautiful young woman, sometimes named Marian in retellings, as a bride to seal a fragile peace. She was presented as a gesture of alliance, a bridge between rival peoples. But her true mission was espionage, to uncover the secret of his invincibility and deliver it to her kin. The Luo elders warned Lwanda against accepting, sensing the trap woven into their proposal. But the giant warrior, perhaps weary of endless conflict or drawn by her grace, disregarded their counsel and took her as his wife. She lived among the Sido, tending his home, sharing meals of fish from the lake and millet porridge, all while observing him with sharp, hidden eyes. Suspicion simmered, but for a time, life continued. Then came the pivotal night of illness. Lwanda fell gravely sick, his first wife away visiting relatives. In his fevered state, he called upon his Nandi bride to prepare medicine. Weakened and trusting, he instructed her precisely. Take a knife and cut into his shadow on the ground, applying the herbs directly to the wound it would reveal. She obeyed, her heart pounding, and to her astonishment, the shadow, cast long by the moonlight, bled real human blood. The stone body remained untouched, but the shadow writhed in pain, proving that Lwanda's essence, his very life force, was bound to this fragile, fleshy projection. That very night, under the cover of darkness and the whispering winds of the plains, she slipped her way through the tall grass, fleeing back to her Nandi people. There, she revealed the secret. Strike not the rock like flesh, but the shadow where it fell upon the earth. The knowledge spread like poison, arming the enemies with the one weapon that could topple their nemesis.
The final confrontation erupted with renewed fury, a climax that would forever alter the Kano plains. Armed with the betrayed truth, the Nandi launched a surprise assault under the cloak of night, catching the Luo unprepared despite the recent marriage ties. War cries pierced the air as spears clashed and shields rattled across the grasslands near the river Nyando. Lwanda, recovered but unsuspecting, charged into the melee as always, his stone form scattering foes left and right. He felled dozens, his roars shaking the air, driving the invaders back in wave after wave. The battle raged until near dawn, the Nandi seemingly on the verge of another rout. But as they retreated toward a low hill, one cunning warrior paused, remembering the wife's revelation. He climbed the rise, spear poised, and waited for the first light of sunrise to cast Lwanda's enormous shadow long across the battlefield. With deadly precision, he held his spear not at the giant's body, but directly into the dark silhouette on the ground. The shadow convulsed as if alive, blood welling from an invisible wound. Lwanda Magere staggered, his invincible form suddenly cracking like parched earth. A groan escaped his lips, deep and tragic, as he clutched at nothing, blood now flowing from the ethereal injury. The mighty rock crumbled, his knees buckled, and the colossal warrior collapsed amid the dust and chaos. The plains fell eerily silent in that moment, as if Namlowe itself held its breath. His body, once stone, began to transform, hardening completely into an immovable boulder, even as life ebbed away. Legend holds he died around the 1780s, his fall marking the end of an era. Strong winds howled across Kano and Nandi lands that day, followed by a devastating 2-year drought that parched the fields and withered the cattle herds, a sign many believed of the ancestors' grief.
In the aftermath, Lwanda's spirit refused to fade. He appeared to the Luo elders in vivid dreams, guiding them to the exact spot in a bush near the river where his stone form had come to rest. When they discovered the massive rock formation, heavy rains poured for 3 days straight, breaking the drought and restoring life to the plains. That stone became his eternal shrine, still standing today in the Sido clan area near Awasi in the Kano Plains, a sacred site revered by pilgrims from across Kenya and beyond. Warriors historically sharpened their blades upon it for blessings before raids, and even now, people visit to offer prayers for strength, protection, or healing, performing rituals that honor the guardian who gave everything for his people. The legend of Lwanda Magere teaches timeless lessons woven into Luo culture. That even the greatest strength has limits, that betrayal can come from the closest bonds, that pride must be tempered with wisdom and trust earned carefully. It reminds us of the dangers of secrets shared too freely and the enduring power of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. In modern times, Lwanda stands as a powerful symbol of Luo pride and broader African resilience, an archetype of the unbreakable hero whose spirit outlives the body, much like ancient epics from other continents. His tale inspires contemporary art, books, films, and animated stories, bridging generations in a world of smartphones and skyscrapers. Songs and dances still celebrate him at cultural festivals, his name invoked as a call to unity and perseverance.
Lwanda Magere may have fallen on that fateful dawn, his stone body marking the earth like a sentinel, but his spirit rises eternal, fierce as the rock he was named for, guarding the plains and the hearts of his people through every storm.
In the whispers of the wind over Namlowe, in the crackle of evening fires, and in the quiet prayers at his shrine, the invincible warrior lives on, reminding all who hear his story that true strength lies not only in unyielding stone, but in the unbreakable will to protect what you love. What lesson from this epic resonates deepest with you? The peril of misplaced trust, the power of community, or the way legends outlast even death itself? His tale, like the great lake beside which it unfolded, flows endlessly, nourishing the soul of Kenya and all who cherish Africa's rich oral heritage.